What's up, guys? Welcome to Demo with Mo. I'm your host, Monique Simmons. We'll be discussing dating, engaged, and married objectives from a young Christian's perspective. Are you guys ready? Let's dive in. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to a new episode of Demo with Mo. I am your host, Monique Simmons. Thank you guys for tuning in to a new week of Demo with Mo. I first want to start off by apologizing to you guys. We did not have a new episode on last week. I had a speaking engagement to attend, my first public speaking engagement that I was invited to as a podcast host, and I wasn't able to get a new episode released. So I want to apologize to you guys for that. But I do want to update you on that speaking engagement. It was amazing. I spoke to some youth from the ages of 12 to 19, and we talked about who's in your circle, the importance of friendships and the people that you surround yourself with, and how that impacts your life and your decision making, even at a young age. I'm really excited about that. And shout out to Ashley Jenkins, a good friend of mine who's also been a guest on the podcast. You guys have heard from her on multiple occasions, and she invited me to an event they were having with her job. And I just appreciate her so much for thinking of little old me. And I appreciate God for such an amazing opportunity, because I have a heart for young people. For those of you, this may be your first episode, or you may not even know this, but I am a Sunday school teacher and I teach teenagers and youth. So I have a special place in my heart for young people. I love them a lot. So it was just a blessing. It was an absolute blessing for me. And my husband and my children came out to support me, which was dope. And it was just an amazing experience. I couldn't even put into words how I felt. It was just a great time. It was just a great time. But again, I want to apologize to you guys. And I'm always keeping honest with you. I'm always going to be real with you and authentic. And I wanted to let you guys know why I was not here on last week, why you guys did not get a new episode. That is why. I hope you guys enjoyed the month of May with the Mother's Day series. Man, that series was really good for my soul, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. But now we are in the month of June, if you are listening to this live, and we are getting ready to kick off some new things. This month, we're going to start off. If you are listening to this live, my husband and I just celebrated our 13th year wedding anniversary on June 13th. And such a blessing to even make it in today's society. To make it to 13 years as a young couple, man, I'm just grateful to God. I am just grateful to God. I'm just grateful to God. And if you've been rocking with me for a while, you know our journey, you know the ups and the downs, you know where we come from. And all I can say, I just thank God, because there was a time I didn't even think we would be married, let alone making it to 13 years of marriage. So I give God all the glory for this. No lie, no lie. So just a few things before we jump into today's episode. I do want to remind you to follow me on all social media platforms. Instagram at Demo with Mo Podcast, TikTok and Facebook at Demo with Mo. And remember, we have a relationship community on Facebook. It's called Dating, Engaged, and Married Objectives. But if you follow me on any of the social media platforms, I do have a link to my link tree, and it will have all the links to where you can reach me anywhere. So my website, all my social media platforms, the Facebook relationship community, all the things. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump into today's episode. And again, I told you we are celebrating our 13-year wedding anniversary. So what better way to celebrate our anniversary than on the podcast? And for this 13 years, I thought it would be dope to ask my husband to join me on this conversation. And we discuss with you guys 13 things that we have learned together in this 13 years of marriage. So we're going to tag team this thing today. He's going to tell you some things he's learned, and I'm going to tell you some things I've learned. There's been some hard things that we've had to learn and some things that we couldn't have learned any other way but through our marriage. So I hope you guys are excited about this conversation and about today's episode. But without further ado, all right, guys, let's dive in. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to a new episode of Demo with Mo. I am your host, Monique Simmons. And on today's episode, I have invited my husband, Corey Simmons, to join me as we discuss 13 things we've learned in our 13 years of marriage. If you are listening to this live, we just celebrated our 13th year wedding anniversary. Welcome, Mr. Simmons. Glad to have you on the podcast joining me.
Hey, what's going on?
Thank you so much for joining me on today. We're going to go ahead and jump right into the 13 things we have learned over the course of our 13 years of marriage. And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of go back and forth between one another. I'll give one, and then my husband will jump in and give one as well to give you a total of 13 things that we have learned in our 13 years of marriage. And we're still learning, y'all. We are still learning. We are still learning. So do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
I try mine first.
What's your first name?
My first thing is love. I learned over the years, love is not just a feeling. Love is a choice. The reason I say that, because love shows by your actions. It's just like if you make me mad, I got a choice to either be mad or love you in that situation, no matter what. Just to give you that grace and show you love still, just like Christ show us love and it's different things that we do against him. So I just feel that love is more of a choice than just a feeling.
Okay. Do you think that you've done it well in our marriage?
No, not all the time, because I still learning. Because it still depending on the situation. Still depends on what life brings us sometimes, or what you do sometimes, certain things.
Okay, so being totally transparent, because that's what my podcast is. My audience know that I'm always going to be authentic. This last season of marriage we've been in for this last year has been very hard for me, and I'm sure it's been hard for you as well. Do you think you've been doing it well in this hard season?
Oh, no, I don't think I've been doing it well, because I let what I see in front of me affect the way I feel about you.
Okay, so I'm going to piggyback off of you with my next one. Well, with my first one that I've learned. I learned love is an action word, and you have to learn to love your partner the way they want to be loved. I didn't know that going into my marriage. And for those of you who have been rocking with me for a while, and those of you who may be completely new to the podcast, Corey and I got married at 21. So we were really young. So it's a lot of things we learned together. We grew up together and we're still learning a lot of things together. But going into marriage, I had no idea that love was more than just, as my husband said, just a feeling, just saying I love you, and that not being enough. I learned that love is an action word. You have to show somebody by your actions, because if I'm giving you mouth service and if I'm saying to my husband that I love him, but if I'm not talking to him respectfully, if I'm not treating him kind, if I'm not doing those things that make him feel loved, it cancels out me saying I love you. And the same for him. If he's saying he loves me, but his actions show me something completely different, I'm not hearing anything that he has to say when it comes to the words I love you, because it's an action word. I'm looking at your actions. Your mouth is saying one thing, but your actions are saying something else. And that's something that I did not learn until marriage. And the other part of that, having to learn to learn the way that they want to be loved or that they need to be loved. I'm sure you guys have all, well, most of you, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I'm sure most of you have heard about the different love languages. The way that I necessarily want to be loved or the things that make me feel loved may not be the same for my husband. So I can't love him the way that I want to be loved and expect him to feel loved, and vice versa. You have to learn your partner and what it is that makes them feel loved and begin to do those things. So, Miss Simmons, what's your next one?
Study. When I mean by study, I mean study and learn your partner.
Ooh.
I had to relearn you.
That's good.
Because as we were dating at the beginning and being married at the beginning, we were young and it was things I do that made you happy, things I did that satisfied you. But now, as you got older and grew and mature more, you got to take some other things. I got to study the thing that you like now, study the thing that you love now, to study the thing that makes you happy, that satisfy you, that turns you on. Because if I did some old stuff back in the day, it might not turn you on today. You might not look at it the same way.
That's actually really good. And my next one, I'm gonna follow you. The next thing I learned is my body. I had to learn my body and how to communicate what I want sexually without shame. And I also learned the things outside of the bedroom affect what goes on inside of the bedroom. Again, Corey and I got married at the young age of 21. We've been dating since we were 17. And he was the person that, and I'm not condoning this or telling anyone else to do this. You have to go back and listen to previous episodes to know our whole story. But we've been having sex since that age. So being teenagers, having sex, and then going into marriage and you still doing the same thing that you were doing as teenagers. I didn't really know my body. I didn't know what turned me on, what pleased me, what satisfied me. So if I didn't know those things about myself, I definitely didn't know how to communicate that with my husband. But as I got older, more mature, began to explore my body, listen to podcasts, learning that that's okay, and learning that you can communicate with your partner what your needs are, what satisfies you, what feels good, what doesn't feel good, and there's nothing wrong with that. I began to do those things. So that's something that I learned as well. And also the second part of that, learning what goes on outside of our bedroom affects what goes in our bedroom. If there's no intimacy outside of our bedroom, like the date nights, that one-on-one time, that my husband sharing his heart with me, letting me know what's going on with his life, us having that closeness and that intimate time with one another outside of our bedroom, and it's only happening inside of our bedroom, it affects our sex life. But once you begin to get close with your partner, begin to know them intimately, begin to prioritize date nights and that one-on-one time and really sharing yourself and being vulnerable, sharing your fears and your dreams with one another, just really getting to know one another better, that makes your sex life so much better. The intimacy outside of the bedroom makes the physical intimacy inside of the bedroom so much better. I didn't learn that until well into our marriage. Mr. Simmons?
Okay, the next thing I got that I had to learn, effort. Putting the same effort I put into my jobs or the other hobbies that I have in my life, I had to put that same effort. If I'm going 100% on the job, I need to come home, clock in, and put the same 100% in my marriage. Being a father to the kids, a provider, a lover, being romantic, all that tie into your marriage. Putting the same effort into it. You can't go to your job putting 100%, then come home, you ain't got nothing left in your tank. So that's just how I feel about it. But that's just something that I'm learning on the go as well, because I never had, just a visual of what a marriage looked like besides on the TV.
Okay, I really like that one. I learned that the self-work we do or don't do affects not only us, but our spouses as well. A lot of times we can assume or we can know certain things about ourselves, or other people can tell us things about ourselves, but we think it only affects us. If I'm doing the work or if I'm not doing the work, if I'm self-aware or if I'm not, it only affects me. But that's not true when it comes to marriage, because marriage is the most intimate relationship that you can have. When I do the work, my partner benefits. When I don't do the work, my partner suffers. And that's a huge thing in marriage.
Okay. My next one is that I have to make time for my wife. At the beginning, it was love and dove at the first beginning, but then, you get to the middle part, everybody get comfortable. So you got to make time for dates, a long time to get away from all the kids and the job and stuff like that. So I just say making time for one another. That's something that I learned.
Okay. I learned I can't change my husband. The only person I can change is me. This one took me a long time to learn. This one took me a really long time to learn because I wanted to be able to change my husband. I'm just going to be completely honest. The things that I didn't like or I didn't agree with or that rubbed me the wrong way, I wanted to be able to change them. But I can't change my husband. My husband has to want to change, and God is the only person that can change my husband. And I had to get to a place where I learned how to trust God, that my husband belongs to him. My husband has a relationship with God, and it's going to be between him and God. God will hold him accountable the same way that he will hold me accountable. So I had to learn that the only person I'm responsible for, the only person that I can change is Monique. I cannot change my husband.
I learned to trust. I usually don't know about it. And I trust people to a certain extent, and I don't let them in too far to get my feelings involved. But as the marriage grew, I had to learn how to trust them.
That's funny. That's a good one, though. That's real. Yeah, that's real. That's for real, real. Let me ask you this. Do you trust me?
To a certain extent.
Y'all hear this? I'm married to the man, and he said he trusts me to a certain extent. Okay. I learned that my past, my upbringing, and my family dynamic affected the present and our dynamic with one another. I honestly thought, once you get out of your home, your childhood home, you leave your family and you start your own family, you can leave all that stuff in the past. You can start over, create your own family, make your own traditions, do your own thing. And don't get me wrong, you can do all of those things. You can start your own family and make your own traditions and begin to raise your kids and do your marriage and things the way you want to do them. But all of that baggage, it comes along with you. It's because you are not physically in your parents' home anymore. All of those things come with you. And I did not know that. But what my marriage did, and when I became a mother and raising kids and my relationship with my husband, all of those things brought up stuff from my past. I had to begin to work through those things and learn how to maneuver through those things, deal with those things, talk about those things, and begin to heal through those things. And I'm still healing through a lot of those stuff. So it's not healed as in past tense, but healing as in present tense as well. I didn't know that. I didn't know that all of that baggage comes along with you.
Last but not least, I had to learn my weaknesses in my marriage. I'm not a cook. I'm not good with money. I'm not a good planner. That's what God gave me a better half to help me with all them things. She's strong where I'm weak, and I'm strong when she's weak. And we're weak together. In certain areas, we make each other strong.
Okay. And you guys, I'm going to hit our last two. I want to piggyback off what you just said on my next one. I learned different doesn't mean wrong. God made my husband completely different from me, which I'm sure you guys know this. If you're in a relationship or you're married to someone, I'm sure you be looking like, what is wrong with you? I'm sure you've asked yourself that, or you probably asked your partner that. We see things different, perceive things different, respond to things differently. That doesn't make one or the other wrong. We're just different. And we can use that to our advantage instead of trying to get the other person to see things our way. As my husband just said, I may be strong in areas that he's weak in, and vice versa. He may be strong in areas that I'm weak in. And that didn't happen by accident. God created us that way. And that's for us, as the Bible says, the two now become one. It's for us to be able to help one another, to become better, to support one another, to encourage one another, to prop up the other one, in the areas that they may fall short in or may be weaker in. So instead of trying to get your partner to be like you, to see things your way, to perceive things your way, to have your perspective, stop doing it from that way, because I promise it's a never ending argument. Been there, done that, got a t-shirt for it. But understand that you guys are completely different. And that's on purpose. You learn what your strengths are, your partner learn what their strengths are, and let it benefit your relationship and your marriage. And the last thing that I learned, no other relationship shows you who you really are like marriage. Yeah, this is one of the hardest things. I can't speak for anyone else. I can't even speak for my husband. But this was one of the hardest things for me in marriage, because you can think certain things about yourself. You can think you got it all together. You got it figured out. You don't have a lot of work to do. But baby, when you get up in a marriage, your marriage will show you who you really are. That spouse will be like a mirror pointing back at you, letting you see yourself for who you really are. You can think you're just the kindest, nicest, respectful person, and then you can hear how you talk to your partner, how you respond to certain things, how you pop off. And baby, you can begin to see, oh, I'm not who I really thought I was. But that's the beautiful thing about marriage. That's why it's one of the most intimate relationships you can have, because even though that's a hard thing about marriage, it's a beautiful thing about marriage, because if you're self-aware, you can begin to do the work. Okay, I may not be as patient as I thought I was. Let me learn how to be more patient. I may not be as kind or as soft in my approach or my deliverance, but my partner reminds me, a little critical. Now I'm mindful of how I respond to him or how I approach him in my deliverance. So, yeah, that was one of the hardest things for me in marriage. And that's one of the things I have learned. So that's our 13 things that we have learned in our 13 years of marriage. If you are not married yet, if you are newlywed, if you've been in the game for a minute, I hope you can pull from some of the things Corey and I have learned from our marriage, and that it helps you. And again, these aren't just learned in past tense. Some of these things are, but most of these things we are still learning presently and still working through, and still have arguments and still don't see eye to eye all the time. So I don't want you to hear this and think we got anything together, because we don't. We're far from it. There are still some moments where I'm like, ooh, child, are we going to make it to the next anniversary? But I am grateful that we are here. And we are celebrating 13 years of marriage together. And I give God all the glory and all the praise for that. Mr. Simmons.
Yes, ma'am.
Before we head out, on our Facebook community, which if you're not a part of it, come over and join us, Dating, Engaged, and Married Objectives. We always offer our community an opportunity whenever I bring a guest on to offer any questions that they may want me to ask the guest. And this question is from Mrs. Sharon Buck. Her question is, it's a two-part question, Mr. Simmons. She said, how do we keep the spark alive? And that second part of her question is, I've mentioned before that we have days for our hobbies. How did we get to that point? And how did we decide on a schedule? So first question, how do we keep the spark alive? What you say? How do we keep the excitement in our marriage?
I guess the sense of humor.
Oh, that's a good one. Sense of humor. Being able to laugh.
Be friends first. That's what I can say. Be friends first, and then be husband and wife.
I love that. I actually love that. I love that, the friendship. And I agree with my husband. The only other one I would add to that is date nights. You guys have probably heard me mention date nights a million times, but it's so important to me that I have that time with my husband just to connect with him. No kids, no work, no extracurricular activities, no stress, no bills, no nothing, just us having fun. But that still piggybacks off what he's saying about the friendship and the humor, because when we have that date night, when we have that one-on-one time together, we're able to laugh together, to not take everything so serious, and to remember what our marriage was built on. And that was friendship. My husband and I were friends for years before we even started dating and getting into a serious relationship. And we've kept our friendship going. We continue to deposit in our friendship, because sometimes we don't get along in our marriage. I'm just going to be honest with y'all. Sometimes that we don't see eye to eye and we don't get along, but that friendship holds us together because we actually care about one another and our well-being, and we really love one another. Not just that romantic love, even though that's important, but we really do love one another as human beings. And the second part, she asked about the schedule for our hobbies. How do we decide on doing it? Because for those of you listening, I do my podcast on Monday. That's my hobby. That's what I love to do. I edit my podcast on Monday. I usually go out to dinner. I go to a bar and have a drink. Whatever I want to do. I spend the time doing whatever I want to do, working on the podcast. And my husband has 2 days a week where he does basketball. He's a basketball coach, and that's his hobby. He has practice or works with the kids or whatever he's going to do. But that's what we've been doing. We've been doing that for a long time now. I know for at least almost the last 2 years that I've been doing this podcast, but that's something that we have set in our schedule. We know on Mondays, my husband is responsible for the home. He doesn't schedule anything, make plans for that day. And I know the 2 days a week where he's going to be doing stuff with basketball, I don't schedule anything and I take care of the home. That's just how we've been doing it. So how did we come to that? That's Sharon's question.
I don't know how we came to it, but it's just the simple fact that you got things that you love as an individual, and I got things that I love to do as an individual, and that's important. You still have to have your own identity, not in a bad way, but things that you enjoy doing that bring happiness to your life.
Yeah,
that you love doing, and if your partner try to take that away from you, there's gonna be some resentment there, and then you don't want that. So you gotta just let them be free sometimes. That's just how I look at it. I mean, I might be wrong, but
Nope, I agree with that. Your partner is still an individual. Even in the marriage, we are still two individuals, and you still got to have things for yourself. Still got to have things that you love to do that make you who you are, because you got to remember that's who your partner or your spouse fell in love with. They didn't fall in love with you as a wife, as a mom, as a person doing all of these things inside the home. They fell in love with you as an individual person as you are. And you got to keep that going. Continue to do the things that you love, because that brings you joy and it brings you happiness, and that benefits your marriage and your relationship with one another. So Sharon, I hope we answered that question and I hope it helps. But Mr. Simmons, what you hoping for this next year, in this next year of marriage?
More communication and closeness this year.
Okay. And I am hoping for this next year that we can have deeper intimacy, that we can begin to really talk about some things and begin to share our hearts with one another, like truly the good and the bad, and share our hearts without fear. I think a lot of times we hold back because we're worried about how our partner may feel or if it may upset them or offend them. But I really hope we get to a place where we can really share with one another our hearts, our dreams. We can dream together and just continue to grow in our marriage. That is my desire for the next year. Mr. Simmons, happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary and goodbye, everyone.
I love you. All right, guys. Remember, I love you, but God loves you so much more. I'll see you next week. Bye. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Follow me on Facebook at Demo with Mo. If you have any questions you would like answered here live on my podcast, email them to me at demowithmo@gmail.com. That's DEMOWITHMO@gmail.com.